Let's start. So here we're going to discuss about leases. I think you might be familiar with IFRS 16, recent updates introduced in 2018. So here, uh, leases is all about why these lease rules we have to study and we have to apply in our businesses, because normally in businesses what they were doing is every leases will be considered as operating leases only. Like, you're taking a building for rent, you're paying the rent monthly or annually you're paying. So every year you have a renewal or you have new contract, right? But same building, you're staying in the same building for a longer period, whatever the scenario. So these rents you will consider it as operating leases because you don't get the ownership at the end of the period. Correct. So you will be showing it as operating expense and you show it in P&L. Okay. But there's something other financial leases there where you get the ownership at the end of the period. Like, you might have seen this Danube's advertisement, 1% to own the property and all. When you drive to Dubai, you might see this hoardings, right? So this is where it's a financial leasing. You get the ownership at the end of the period. Clear. But here, what happened is, because these rules were not strict and these rules were not as what we see right now, people were recording a lot of what we say off balance sheet financing. They were doing off balance sheet financing. I'll tell you what is off balance sheet financing. Like, for example, I want to run my business in Abu Dhabi city in a building. So I want to rent a building. Either I have to rent a building or I have to purchase a building. Clear. So if I have to purchase, what is the problem? I don't have money. I have to take loan from the bank to purchase this building and run my business. Clear. So I get the ownership. Otherwise, I have to rent it from somebody. Now, most of the business are working in the same building for the last 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. Correct. So it is kind of a long-term lease, but everybody show it as financial lease or it as operating lease or yearly lease. Got it. So the problem here is, for example, if I am a listed company and I have a competitor who is also a listed company, what he does is he borrowed loan from he took loan from the bank and he purchased a building and he is running his business in that particular building. What I did, for example, this is how the off balance sheet financing is working. I need a building, right? So she is my friend. I will ask her to set up a company, take a loan, purchase this building. I will rent it from you. Got it. So now what happens? Her company is not a listed company. Nobody knows about her company also, right? What happens for me? I'm renting a building, so it's an operating lease. I will show it as only as an expense. And when when an investor comes and look into our two of our balance sheets, whose balance sheet looks good? Mine or him? Mine, because I don't have a loan. I'm not a riskier investment, right? Because I have lesser loans compared to him. We are doing same sales, same revenue, everything is same. But I look pretty good because I don't have a loan. Why? Because I have an arrangement with her for an operating lease. Clear. His balance sheet, he will have depreciation, right? Because building is his, and he will have interest expense also. Okay. To make the level playing for everybody, to avoid this kind of off balance sheet financing. I'm not saying, or IFRS is not saying everybody does this off balance sheet financing, but ultimately the effect is happening is off balance sheet financing. Clear. So even though we consider it as operating lease, if you are staying for more than 2 years, it is considered to be you are getting benefit out of it, the building. Okay. Now, what happens here? This IFRS rule or whatever the lease rules, US GAAP says, his business and my business should be considered equally. Now, what I will do, according to the financing or leases, there are 5 conditions. If any of these 5 conditions is satisfied, then that particular lease is a finance lease. You can't show it as an operating lease. Clear. So my balance sheet also, I will, even though it is an operating lease, I'm taking only for a few periods, or I don't own the building at the end of the period, but still, I will have to recognize this particular building as my asset, called as lease asset. As well as I will recognize a liability called lease liability. So when you compare this statement with his statement, he is having a bank loan, I am having a lease liability. He is having a building as asset, I am having a lease asset or right to use of asset. Clear? Got it? Now, so here, a lease is a long-term contract in which the owner of the property or the lessor allows the another party, the lessee, to use the property for a stated period in an exchange of a stated money, stated payment. The primary issue is whether the lease agreement transfers substantially all the benefit and risk of ownership of the asset to the lessee. Okay. So when you have the ownership, you will have the risk also, right? So if you are ultimately you will be checking whether you are going to get the majority benefit out of it or you are having the risk of this particular property. Now we'll see the lease classification test. Say this a lease is classified as finance lease by the lessee at lease commencement at least one of the following five criteria is met. We are talking about the lessee who is taking the building on rent. Clear? So those are five conditions. First one, the lease transfers ownership of the leased asset to the lessee by the end of the lease term. Then definitely it's a finance lease, right? When you're taking a building on a rent and you say after 10 years you will become the owner of this building, then it's a finance type lease. Clear? Second one, the lease includes an option to purchase. Okay, the leased asset at the leased asset that the lessee is reasonably certain to exercise. That means you can rent this building for 10 years. After 10 years, we will give you a payment option. Like you pay us like 100,000 dirhams, we will give this building to you. Correct. If this is the condition, here the ownership doesn't transfer automatically. We have to pay something. But still, but there is one condition mentioning, we call it as bargain purchase option, BPO. Okay. This particular transaction is called bargain purchase option. And here we are mentioning that the lessee is reasonably certain to exercise. So if I'm taking a building on a rent for 10 years and I know the owner is going to give me, owners have given an option that at the end of the 10 year, I will pay them this 100,000 dirhams and I will get this asset. And as a lessee, I am the one who is accounting and I am certain, I am sure that at the end of 10th year, I'm going to use this facility. I'm gonna pay him 100,000 and take this building. Then it's a finance type lease. Clear. Next one. Third condition is that uh, the lease term is the major part of the remaining economic life of the lease term. We know a building's life is maybe 15 years or 10 years. Okay. So for example, if it's a 15-year building and I am taking this building or I am using this building for the last 13 years, then who is getting the maximum benefit out of this building? I am. So it will become a finance lease for me. Clear? Now, so here the major difference you could see in IFRS and US GAAP is that in US GAAP they will say directly how much percentage. Like here it says the lease term of 75% or more of the remaining economic life of the leased asset generally is considered to be major part of its remaining economic life. Here they have mentioned 75%. In IFRS they say majority period. So for me, 50% more is majority. For somebody else, 90% more is majority. Clear. So there comes a conflict. Clear. So here they have clearly stated 75% or more. If I am using the tenor of the economic life of an asset, then it's a finance lease for me. Clear? No, economic life is the usefulness of that particular asset. For example, if I'm taking a car, if I'm purchasing not purchasing, I'm leasing a car from a company. And the life of the car is 5 years, for example. And I am taking the lease for 4 years, then I am the majority on user. So I will recognize it as my finance type lease. Clear? This criteria is inapplicable if the beginning of the lease term is at or near the end of the economic life of the leased asset. This period generally is considered to be last 25% of the lease asset's economic life. For example, if it's a 10-year life this particular building has. Okay, I rented this building for 8 years. Got it. So what the first statement says, 75% or more of the remaining economic life, and I gave it back to the owner. Now this particular building has 2 years life, and you came and borrowed, took this building for 1.5 years. So out of this 2 years, 1.5 means it's 75%, right? Yeah, more than 75% you are using, but you can't consider it as finance state place. Why? Because of this criteria. Because the remaining economic life is only 2 years, or what we say, 25%. You should not consider that the total years you should take. Clear? See, wait one second. This criteria is like a lease term of 75% or more of the remaining economic life of the leased assets generally is considered to be major part of its remaining economic life. But this criteria is inapplicable if the beginning of the lease term is at or near the end of the economic life of the leased asset. This asset is almost done with its career or with its life. Now you are taking on lease, you should not consider it as your finance take lease. Clear? Got it? Next criteria. Fourth one is that the present value of the sum of the lease payments and the residual value guaranteed by the lessee equals or exceeds substantially all of the fair value of the leased asset. Okay, now I'll tell you. For example, it's a 5-year lease term. Okay, 5-year lease term, and you're using only 3 years. So that comes only 60%, right? So this above condition will not satisfy. But when you take the whole payments, in the first year you are paying 200,000, second year you are paying 1,500,000, third year you are paying 100,000. So 2 plus 1.5, 3.5 plus 1, 4.5 you are paying. The assets fair market value is 500,000. Clear? Now, what you have to do is you have to take the present value of all the payments, what you are doing. Okay. Do you know what is present value? Which year the present value will take? Which year it was? All the years payment, all the future years payment we are going to do. For example, I'll show you. Mm. The rent you are paying, okay, year 1, 2, 3. And in the third year, you will have a residual value you're paying also. For example, okay, you will avoid the residual value now. And your rent you are paying is 200,000 each. Every year you are paying 200,000 rent. And for example, the market interest, okay, is 10%. Right? How you are going to calculate your present value is 10% is the market interest means if you are not investing your money or the purchasing power of your money will decrease 10% every year. Got it? For example, I'll tell you. You're having 1,000 dirhams with you. Okay? And what is your name? Mansur. Mansur. Mansur is also having 1,000 dirhams. Okay. What Mansur did? Mansur put this money into bank for 10% interest. What is the market rate? For 10%. He get an interest of 100 dirhams. So how much he get is at the end of the period, what he have is 1,100. Okay. After 1 year, still I didn't put my money into bank. I'm still having only 1,000 dirhams. So what happened to the value of my money? If his value is 1 dirham, then what is my value? Clear? This. If his value is 1 dirham, okay, because he will have 1,100 dirham in his hand, and my value is 0.91 fils. Clear? The value of my money decreased because I didn't invest. Same scenario, you can put it here as, for example, after 1 year, if you want to get 1,000 dirhams, okay, you can think this way also, right? After 1 year, you want to get 1,000 dirhams. Then how much money you have to invest in a bank right now? Okay, that is, you have to invest this. If you invest this money, 9,909 dirhams in a bank for 10% interest, what will happen? You will get 1,000 dirhams. So, so this is the present value concept. Got it. So now what happens is here, you're going to pay this 200,000 when? After 1 year, right? You're taking the rent now on this now. Okay. And you're paying after 1 year. After 1 year, you're paying 200,000. So that means if you want to pay 200,000 after 1 year, how much money you have to invest in a bank? That is my question. Got it? So the formula is 1 plus is the thing. You got the idea, right? I'll change it to 100,000 to make easy for you to understand. Got it. So this is the present value of future cash flow. We call it as. So we'll do the same thing for all the other years. Okay. Now, if you want 200,000 after 2 years, you have to invest 165,000 in a bank right now. Got it. You're getting the concept. Now, so this is the present value of all the future cash flows. And now comes here the present value of okay here the present value of the sum of the lease payments and any residual value guaranteed by the lessee equals or exceeds substantially all of the fair value of the leased asset. For example, this particular asset which you took for 3 years lease, the fair value is 550,000. Okay, the market value of this particular asset is 550,000. Now, the asset is having 5 years life. You're taking only 3 years. So the third condition will not satisfy because it is 60% only, right? 3 years you are using, 5 years life. Okay. But so you will go to the fourth statement. You will check the fourth statement is correct or not. Now, fourth statement is this is the present value of all the future cash flow divided by the fair value, that is 550,000. So it is more than 90%. Got it? More than 90%. So this is the finance state lease. That means the value of this particular asset, majority money you are paying or you are utilizing. Got it? Then last comes the leased asset is so specialized that it is expected to have no alternative use to the lessor at the end of the lease term. For example, you came to me and said, Nadeem, I need a custom-made equipment which I can manufacture any product. This machine can only be used by you. It's a very much custom-made product. This doesn't have any alternative use. So I either I purchase or I develop this product for you. Uh, the last one. So, so what was that? Mm, Okay, so very much customized product. So if it's a customized stuff, if you say, I don't want this, then I can't rent this to somebody else because nobody have a use with this. If only you are the one who is going to benefit out of this, then this is a finance type lease. It's not an operating lease. Got it? Next. So the lease asset is so specialized that it is expected to have no alternative use to the lessor at the end of the lease term. When none of the five classification criteria described above are met, the lease is classified as an operating lease by the lessee. None of the five. I'm talking about out of this five, any one satisfies, then it is a finance type lease. Yeah. I will start the initial measurement and all the next class. Okay. Good enough. Yeah. So thank you, people. If you have any doubts, please get back to me. Okay.